We're in July, and although you might think that it is too hot or too late to get started with your garden, fear not. There are still so many vegetables, herbs, and even flowers that you can be getting started in your garden now. If you have nothing in your soil yet because you were just procrastinating, you were starting your garden out for the first time, or you have already gotten things in the ground and you just want to grow into a later season, into the fall, so that you can be reaping the benefits of your garden for a much longer time, then you've come to the right spot. I'm in a zone 7, but these can easily be modified for the zone that you're in, and something that we can always talk about if you're in a different zone. Definitely comment down below which zone you're in, and if you are zone 7 for gardening, then I suggest following along, because I create a new content every week about gardening in this zone, and I'd love to have you along for the journey. Now, something that I do that's a little bit unorthodox is I actually keep all of my seeds in a binder. I know it makes you think very high school, middle school, but there are really cool inserts so you can easily organize all your seeds. Once I found this out, it was a game changer, because there are a lot of other methods, but this, the best. Okay, so let's get started with the fastest growing crops. Now, these are going to have a fast mature time, and they're also going to be quite heat tolerant. So if you are in the midst of July and you want to get started, these are going to be the best ones to get started with. Okay, the first one that we're going to talk about is bush beans. Now, they're going to be super productive, and they're going to produce in a very relatively quick timeline, anywhere between 50 to 60 days. This variety here is 55 to 60, and what I'm going to do is I actually have a drip line set up in one of my beds, so I'm just going to drop a few of these in there. I'm going to take a few seeds along for the journey, and we'll drop them along once we get over there. I feel like 3 of these. Another amazing crop for this time is going to be summer squash or zucchini. Now, I absolutely love zucchini. I think it's really easy to grow and something that we always get so many of in the garden. Our plants are huge right now, and I think that they're just a really versatile vegetable that you can be growing. I throw them cut up, I'll freeze them, cut them up, put them into smoothies. Yes, you can do that. You can bake it into muffins. You can use it as a vegetable side option, and yeah, you can be making zucchini bread, zoodles, I don't know. The sky's the limits, and they just have such a good flavor, or lack thereof, a significant flavor, that you can feed them to your kids, you can feed them to relatives. Usually people that are picky eaters will eat these if they're mixed in with other items or in a nice dish. We have okra as well. I do not grow okra here, but if you are looking for something that is heat tolerant and going to grow fast, this is going to be a great vegetable you can be adding to your garden. Again, I'm not a big fan of okra, but it is something you can be adding, and I want to share a wealth of knowledge around what you can be doing at this time. And lastly, one of my favorite plants to be adding at this time is cucumbers. Any type of cucumber, really. Now, I actually stopped planting cucumbers early in the season because they were just getting destroyed by our cucumber beetles. So I don't even plant them anymore in the beginning. I just plant them at this time, and I found that they're way more disease resistant if I do it at this time instead of at the beginning of the season. So you're not going to get your pickles as quick as everyone else, or being able to eat cucumbers as quickly, but I found that disease resistant abilities, the later the better for cucumbers specifically. Okay, so let's go get some of these into the ground. And while we're doing that, let's talk about some of the plants that you can be planting right now so that you can actually get a nice crop in the fall. And that is going to be a few things. So first off, you can do your brassicas. So that's going to be anything like your broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage. I suggest planting these indoors and then moving them out into your garden beds once they're a little bit bigger. They will work a lot better that way. Okay, so while I'm talking about this, I'm actually planting some of the seeds that I just called out. So I'm just gonna space them out pretty nicely along our drip line. And I've already laid this down, so this is actually gonna make it so much easier to grow. Now, another option that you can be adding at this time are some root vegetables. And root vegetables are actually going to be a lot sweeter if they're given some of that colder temperature. So planting these now, you can direct sow them in the ground. Things like carrots and beets will actually be a lot sweeter because you can harvest them a little bit later, and that nice cold weather will make them quite sweeter. I find that carrots are really great at this time. Now that that plane flew away, let's talk about another item, which is Swiss chard. Again, this is going to be really great in the heat of the summer, in the heat of July and August, and it will carry you on into the fall. And lastly, lettuces. You could still be planting lettuces at this time. If you have space in your garden, you should be filling it up. The number one myth on gardening is that you should have empty space like this. We actually just pulled a lot of things in here, so I have a lot of empty space, but I definitely do not suggest having this. It just makes it so that the sun penetrates into the soil more easily and that there's less nutrients in the soil because of that heat coming down. It also makes it so that you get more weeds. And if you don't want to weed as often, you should put plants in there and have them take up the ground instead of the weeds. Now, like I said, you can do some lettuces. I definitely suggest planting those and just putting them into a nice shaded area. You most likely are starting to do a lot of your spring harvesting at this time. Things like peas, potatoes, garlic are just a few that you've probably started to harvest and no longer are going to be planting them again because they're more of a spring crop. But it doesn't mean that that space should be left barren in your garden. You actually want to do some successional planting. So where you had your peas, you can be growing those beans that are going to be very heat tolerant and grow quite quickly. In the areas that you had garlic, you could be putting things like your carrots or some lettuce. And then in areas that you had your potatoes, I definitely suggest putting some greens, some additional lettuces that are going to grow quite quickly, and make sure that you're utilizing the garden space that you have. We only have so much time in a year that we can be using and growing things in. We really want to take advantage of it. July is also a perfect time for herbs and flowers that you can be adding to your garden. Something like basil and cilantro that are a quick and easy plant to grow, and something that you can quickly cut and add to a dish to make it have a really great pop of fresh flavor. Something else that's really great and going to add lots of pollinators to your garden are things like dill. Not only do they smell and look really great, you can add them with your pickles, but they add so many great benefits to the garden by adding in a lot more pollinators that are going to make sure that all of your other plants are pollinated and growing a lot better. Thinking about things like flowers, you can plant zinnias and marigolds in your garden. These are going to be beneficial in keeping away pests, and they bring a beautiful pop of color, as well as they grow into the fall months. So when you're looking at more of a drab garden, these will add a beautiful color. I know this is not a marigold, nor is it a zinnia, but a flower, you know? July is a hot time of year, so let's talk about some tips to get you through this month. First off, making sure that you're watering daily. I suggest watering in the times of day when it's not super hot. So in the early morning or late afternoon. 4 p.m. is still pretty early, so do much later than that. This way, all of your plants can actually absorb the water and the water doesn't burn them or just react badly with them. And the next thing that you should be doing is making sure that you're mulching your bed. This is going to make sure that your soil is really locked in with the nutrients, and when it does get rain, which it most likely won't get that much rain in July, but you're watering your plants, it's actually going to hold the moisture in. Do around 3 to 4 inches of mulching, a nice heavy mulch, and you can do this with wood chips or straw. In most of our garden beds, we do straw. It's just easiest to maneuver with, cost effective, easier to get than wood chips, but I really suggest either of them. And then what you also want to think about is how you are going to be shading your plants. For some of your plants, they're not going to be able to take that high heat of the day for such a long period of time. So if you've chosen a garden spot that has full sun all day, you will want to think of ways that you can actually keep your plants secure. This is our propagation station, and something that we do here is add shade cloth for all of our plants that are being propagated. And I also suggest adding shade cloth to your other plants in your garden so they are also having a space where they can be shaded from the sun. If you don't have shade cloth and you have a small garden, you can also use something like an umbrella, a beach umbrella, a tent, anything of the likes to keep them safe from that harsh sun in the middle of the day. Whether you're prepping a new set of beans, adding in some lettuce, or just going in the garden and adding whatever you can in all of the nooks and crannies, July is a great time to garden, continue on the garden, and think about things that will carry you into the fall months so that your garden's really utilizing the full garden season. I hope this was helpful, and again, make sure to comment down what zone you're in and follow along if you're in zone 7 and interested in more small gardening tips.